So before we start creating content, you need to understand what makes a good prompt. And this is kind of like the I would say the standard formula, or at least something that's been like working very well for me. That doesn't mean that this is like the only way, but like it's always like interesting to have some sort of structure to like understand how you can craft the most efficient prompt and iterate around it. And pretty much the formula I use is to kind of like start always with like the medium. What is this that you're trying to create, or like asking Midjourney to create? Is it a photo, a painting, an illustration, a sculpture, like whatever it is? Then the subject, very important. Like, is it like a person? Is it like a character, a location, a building? What the environment looks like? It's like being like as specific as possible, but also include, like the mood, the lighting, the colors, and then the composition of the image. And then one thing that is important is like the orders of your words will have an impact on the content you're creating. So if for you it's like very important that like the composition is like the number one priority, then you can move the composition at the beginning of the prompt just to putting it more weight. There is like different tricks and stuff you can use to kind of like structure your prompt differently. But in my opinion, this is like the most like efficient way to doing it. I will share with you a Notion doc with like all the different variables and tokens you can use. But to give you like a visual example before we start doing it together in Midjourney, this is like what's like a simple prompt looks like. And this is where usually I'm starting. So like dash imagine, or you don't need the slash imagine if you're doing it directly from the web app. But as you can see, I'm kind of like using the same structure. So a picture outside of a luxury Louis Vuitton retail space. So this is like the medium and the subject. Architectural space of repose carved straight directly into mountainous rocks. Muted tone, Marseille shore in the background. And I have the dash style raw, but if it's like part of your settings, it's automatically gonna apply. And as you can see here, it's very important to being able to like describe properly what you're trying to achieve. So that's why I say like doing your research, educating yourself is like always important. And then in generating this like first 4 images. Usually I start as simple as that, just to kind of like, seeing if like the vibe and the scene I want to generate kind of like fits what I have in mind. And now I want to like take it a step further. And so I use a lot of these tokens like avant-garde fashion, avant-garde design, and architecture just to like help Midjourney kind of like taking the creativity a little bit further. And in this case, I want to have the Louis Vuitton logo pretty prominent and visible on the content. So that's why I decided to add the LV logo earlier in my prompt. That doesn't mean that I'm going to keep all of them. That's going to be part more of like the editing and post-production. But at least as you can see, it's starting to kind of like make the content evolve and being like more interesting. I adding some references around the colors, so like adding the orange fluo accents. And in this case, I also added like an architect, Alvaro Silva. That doesn't mean that this is like necessary. Sometimes I'm trying using like established architect or photographer. I take them out and then I realize that it doesn't have much of an impact. Usually if you're trying to do like a painting in the style of Van Gogh or Leonardo da Vinci, then yes, it's going to be very important and recognizable. For the rest, that really depend of like how much data Midjourney had about this like specific creative. When you use someone as a reference, again, is like not to trying to rip off their work. Is more to just like experimenting with your prompt, and you need to be very mindful about that and respectful, especially if you're working on a commercial project. But as kind of like a test and learn experiment, like I don't think why this would be an issue. And then now is like, if you want to start to kind of like being more specific around the composition, right? So like I adding simple stuff again. This is not like a rocket science. Everyone can do it, to be honest. The importance here is like having the vision and like what you want to achieve. So the building in center in the image, perfect symmetry, just like starting to have like a very interesting composition and visuals that I personally enjoy and think are interesting. And then another part that I want to share with you is like the image ratio. So like I showed you in the previous video, like you can by default is 1:1, but you can have like the story format, you can have like the 4:5 landscape, and pretty much everything between these different ratio. And then when you pick the ratio, it's going to have an impact on the outcome. So here is like the exact same prompt, but as you can see, the composition is like very different. Like the model is like way more close up here. So that's something to keep in mind. Usually when I have a prompt that I like, I'm going to run within like different ratio, and I'm going to show you how to do that within one simple commands to being able to see like how is the impact on the ratio. Because the reality is like if you really like this image, that doesn't mean that you're only gonna be stuck to like the 9:16, because once you have this image and let's say you want to like expand it, you want to use it in different composition and different layout. I'm going to show you how to do that within Photoshop to being able to like expand the ratio and doing a different image composition. Obviously cropping within an image is like more easy, but it's just like showing you that like the same prompt has different outcome depending of the ratio you use.